There are stories in history that seem as though they were buried beneath the dust of time. Cities vanished. People once lived, laughed, and hoped, only to quietly become memories. Time seems to hold absolute power. It erases the names of kings, brings down the strongest walls, and turns places once full of life into cold, empty wastelands. But there is one story that not even time could erase. A story that forces people to ask, what would happen if death were not the end? What would happen if time itself, the thing we imagine cannot be resisted, bowed before the power of the Creator? Imagine standing in the middle of a dead city, not a place that was only recently abandoned, but one that has been forgotten for so long that even the wind seems to carry silence. The walls that once protected people are now nothing more than broken stone. The gates that once opened for crowds of travelers now lean like exhausted witnesses to history. The streets are cracked beneath the dry sun. There are no children playing, no marketplace buzzing with trade, no sound of water flowing through the narrow canals that once sustained the whole city. All that remains is wind, dust, and scattered bones across the ground, like the final pages of a book that has been torn apart. In the middle of that ruined landscape, a man walks slowly forward. His cloak brushes lightly against the old stones. His footsteps echo through a silence so deep, it feels as though the whole world is listening. He is not an ordinary traveler. This is Uzair, a man to whom Allah granted wisdom and closeness to the truth. His eyes do not only see collapsed walls, they also see the memory of a city that once lived. He imagines families gathering here in the evening, gardens once full of green, and prayers once rising through crowded streets. But now, all of it has become nothing more than traces. Uzair stops near the old city gate. Two stone pillars lean toward each other as though trying to hold on to this place's last memory. He looks around for a long time, as if listening for something no one else can hear. On the ground lie fragments of bones, human and animal alike, scattered everywhere. The earth is split open and hardened, like a body that lost its life long ago. In that moment, Uzair's heart fills with a feeling that is difficult to name. It is not doubt, because he knows well that Allah's power is beyond all limits. But it is a deep astonishment at how completely life can disappear. He kneels softly, his hand resting against the cold stone of a wall worn down by the years. The marks on it once testified to life, to the hands that built this city. But now all of it has become dust. In the silence covering everything, Uzair speaks in a voice so soft, it is almost a whisper carried by the wind. How will Allah bring this place back to life after its death? This is not the question of a skeptic. Uzair knows that Allah is the Almighty, the one who created all things from nothing. But sometimes, even a heart full of faith can fall silent before the greatness of creation. His question is not doubt. It is reflection before the mystery of life and death. How can a place that has completely lost life, a place where every trace of humanity has been swallowed by time, ever return once again? Uzair sits beneath the shade of a fig tree still standing at the edge of the city. The tree remains there, steady like a witness to history, its roots reaching deep into the earth as though holding on to the memory of an entire age. Beside him, he places a small basket filled with figs and grapes that he brought for the journey. His donkey stands nearby, quietly grazing in one of the few patches of land where a little life still remains. The sun slowly sinks toward the horizon, casting a pale golden light across the ruins. A soft wind moves through the branches, making a sound like the whisper of the past. Uzair leans against the trunk of the tree, his gaze still fixed on the remains of the city. He does not know that the question that just rose from his heart has been heard. not by the wind, not by the broken walls around him, but by the one who created time, life, and death. And very soon, Allah will answer that question. But that answer will not come only in words. It will come as a miracle that will make the world remember the story of Uzair for generations. Welcome to Prophetic History Explained, where we explore the deepest stories from the history of the prophets. If you love stories that help us better understand faith, the power of Allah, and the true meaning of life, please subscribe and support us. Your support is the reason we can continue bringing you more powerful and inspiring stories in the videos ahead. Evening shadows slowly settle over the ruined land. The last light of the sun slips quietly across broken walls and collapsed rooftops, covering the old city in a pale gold glow, like a memory fading away. Beneath the canopy of the old fig tree at the edge of the ruins, Uzair sits in silence after his long journey. There are no more footsteps of exploration like when he first entered the ruined city. No more searching glances trying to find answers in the traces of the past. What remains is only the deep stillness of a man who has just placed a great question before the world itself. The small basket beside him holds ripe figs and clusters of grapes. It is the simple food of a traveler. Yet in this ruined landscape, it feels like the last fragment of life left in a place that has died. His donkey stands nearby, occasionally shaking its head and stamping the ground, unaware that this place is about to become the witness of something history will never forget. The evening wind begins to move gently through the leaves of the fig tree. The sound of them brushing together feels like the distant whisper of time. Uzair leans against the rough trunk, his eyes raised toward a sky slowly turning into the colors of sunset. His heart is calm. There is no fear, no sense that something strange is about to happen. To him, this is only a brief moment of rest after a long day of reflection. But sometimes the moments that seem the most ordinary become the beginning of the greatest miracles. There is no thunder, no blinding light from the sky, no sign that human eyes could recognize. In the absolute stillness of sunset, Allah takes Uzair's soul. He closes his eyes gently, like a man drifting into deep sleep after a long day. His hand relaxes beside the basket of fruit. His breathing stops in perfect peace. His donkey stands quietly beside him, then slowly stops moving as well. Like the entire scene sinks into such stillness that it feels as though even the air itself has stopped flowing. But the world outside does not stop. The next day, the sun rises, as it always does. Light stretches once again across the ruins of the old city. The wind continues to move through the broken walls. Then another day comes, and another. Time begins to flow like endless water. Rainy seasons come and go. Sandstorms sweep across the dry land. Moonlit nights pour their light over the old fig tree. New generations are born in distant lands. New kingdoms rise and then disappear under the hand of history. New roads are opened while old ones are forgotten. 1 year passes, then 10 years, then 50. The world keeps changing. But beneath the shade of that fig tree, Uzair still lies there. No sign of decay touches his body. No wild animal comes near him. No wind disturbs the silence around him. Time itself seems to have been held back in that place, as if the earth and sky both recognize that something sacred is being preserved. The basket of fruit remains beside him exactly as it was. The figs are still plump. The grapes are still fresh, as though they were just picked. There are no wrinkles, no sign of rotting. It is as though time holds no authority over them. But his donkey is different. The years begin to leave their mark on the animal's body. Flesh slowly disappears according to the law of nature. The skin dries out and vanishes. In the end, only a skeleton remains on the ground near the place where Uzair rests. White bones gradually appear beneath the sunlight and the rare rain. And time continues to pass. The old fig tree grows larger over the years. Its trunk becomes thicker, its branches spread wider. Its roots drive deeper into the ground, as if holding this place firmly against the changes of the outside world. A century passes in silence. 100 years of human history. 100 years of stories, lives, joys, and sorrows that Uzair knows nothing about. But for him, it is like a single quiet moment stretched between two breaths. The sky still spreads above the fig tree. The stars still appear each night and disappear again in the morning. The seasons continue returning one after another in the endless turning of time. Then, as the 100th year reaches the moment that was decreed, what Allah had decided before Uzair ever closed his eyes finally arrives. A command is issued from the Creator. The one who caused life to stop is the same one who will call it back. Thus, beneath the shade of the fig tree that has witnessed a century of silence, an unseen change begins to unfold. Not a change in the earth or sky, not a movement in history, but the return of life. A miracle of which Uzair, the very man who once asked how Allah could bring a dead place back to life, is about to become the first witness. A moment arrives, so gentle that if human beings could see it, they might not even realize what was happening. After a century has passed in complete silence, life begins to return to the place where time once stood still. Beneath the old fig tree that has watched 100 years of history pass by, Uzair's body begins to move. Not a strong movement, but a tiny sigh, almost impossible to notice. His chest rises slightly as his first breath returns, like a soft breeze moving over land that has slept for too long. This is the moment Allah calls his soul back. Uzair's eyes slowly open. Daylight fills his vision, yet the sky he sees feels both familiar and strangely distant. The fig tree is still there, but its trunk is larger, its branches wider, as though decades have passed over it. Uzair blinks several times, trying to understand what is happening. To him, it feels as though he only closed his eyes for a short rest. He sits up slowly. The ground beneath his hand is still cool. There is no feeling of a long sleep. There is no sign that many years have passed. Everything still feels exactly as it did when he first set the basket of fruit down beside him. His eyes immediately turn to that basket. The figs and grapes are still there, fresh and full just as they were when he carried them on his journey. There is no sign of time, no shriveling, no scent of decay. They look exactly as they did when he placed them beneath the tree before closing his eyes. That normalcy makes Uzair believe he has rested only a short while. But then, a sacred presence fills the space around him. It is not the sound of a human being. It is not the wind or the sounds of nature. It is the presence of a message from Allah, delivered through an angel. A question is asked, simple in words, yet carrying the weight of an entire century. How long have you been here? Uzair thinks for a moment. He looks at the sky, at the basket of fruit still untouched, at the daylight stretching around him. Everything makes him feel that only a short amount of time has passed. So he answers sincerely and without hesitation, perhaps a day or part of a day. But the answer from the angel immediately shakes his thoughts. No, you have been here for 100 years. Those words do not crash like thunder, yet their weight makes Uzair's heart stop for a beat. 100 years. Long enough for an entire generation to be born and disappear from the earth. Long enough for a city to collapse and be rebuilt. Far longer than anything a human being can truly feel. Uzair looks again at the basket of fruit in his hand. The angel tells him to look carefully. He studies the figs, the grapes. They are still fresh as they were in the beginning, as though time has not touched them. That is the first sign that what he has just heard is not imagination. But the miracle does not stop there. The angel tells him to look toward the place where his donkey once stood. Uzair turns his head. On the ground, not far from him, lies the skeleton of the donkey, its bones scattered and pale beneath the sun. The bones are separated from one another, like the silent signature of passing time. Then the unimaginable begins to happen before his eyes. The bones tremble. Piece by piece, they begin to move toward one another as though guided by an unseen force. A rib finds its place. The spine rises from the earth. The skull lifts from the dust. Every part of the skeleton joins together perfectly, just as it once was in a living body. Uzair stands frozen, his breathing becoming faster in astonishment. But the miracle continues. Once the skeleton is complete, sinews begin to appear, joining the bones together. Layer by layer, muscles form over the frame. Skin covers the animal's body, hiding the white bones that were visible only moments before. Then, at last, the donkey rises to its feet and shakes its head as though it has just awakened from a short sleep. It breathes. It lives. Uzair feels his heart pounding in his chest. Before his eyes, Allah has shown him what people can only imagine through faith: life returning after death. Not a story, not a legend, but an event happening right in front of him. And yet one more sign is waiting for him to notice. Uzair stands and looks toward the city that had once been a heap of ruins. The place where he once saw collapsed walls and bones across the ground has now changed. New houses stand there. Green gardens appear between the roads. Water runs through small canals. The voices of people can be heard from a distance. The city that died has come back to life. In that moment, Uzair understands that the question he once spoke among the ruins has now been answered more clearly than words could ever answer it. Allah does not only have the power to create life, He also has the power to bring life back after death has already come. And now Uzair is no longer only the man who asked the question. He has become the living witness to the answer. After seeing the signs that shook his heart, Uzair stands for a long time at the edge of the city. Before him is a world he now realizes he no longer belongs to in the old way. To him, only a brief moment has passed since he rested beneath the fig tree. But to the world, a century has slipped by like water that cannot be reversed. The roads before him no longer look like the memories fixed in his mind. New walls have been raised where there were once only ruins. Green gardens have grown where the ground was once dry and cracked. The scene before him is full of life, yet every step he takes carries a feeling of unfamiliarity he can hardly describe. He begins walking back toward his homeland. It is a road that was once deeply familiar. Every curve, every tree, every patch of earth once held the marks of the days he lived before that strange sleep took him. But now the roads have been repaired, the fields have changed, and new houses stand where there used to be nothing but empty land. Uzair walks slowly, his eyes constantly searching for traces of the past. But every time he sees something familiar, he realizes time has changed it. When he enters the village that was once his home, that feeling grows even stronger. Children's laughter fills the narrow roads. People are busy with their daily lives. The gardens in front of the homes are full of fruit trees and flowers. Everything is lively and full of energy, completely different from the silence of the ruined city he passed through. But not one face is familiar to him. The people who once lived beside him, prayed beside him, and shared the days of life with him have all been gone from this world for a very long time. The people who pass him look at him only as a stranger from far away. They do not know that the man walking among them lived here before their grandparents were even born. Uzair looks at the young faces, the grown men and women, the elderly sitting in front of their homes. None of them recognizes him. In that moment, Uzair understands that he has come home. Yet his home no longer knows him. He keeps walking until he notices an elderly figure sitting at the edge of the village. An old woman with a worn shawl covering her silver hair. Her back is bent with age, and her eyes are clouded as though they lost their light long ago. She sits in silence, like someone who has watched too many years pass by. Uzair stops in front of her. In his memory, this woman was once a young girl from the village. But now time has made her one of the final witnesses to a century gone by. Hearing footsteps, she asks softly, her voice trembling with age, "Who is there?" Uzair gently calls her by name, a name he has not spoken for 100 years. When she hears her own name spoken in that familiar voice, the old woman suddenly freezes. Her trembling hand tightens around her shawl. That voice. She heard it long ago, like in an age when she was young and life was still full of familiar faces. She whispers, hardly able to trust her own ears. "The man you are speaking of died 100 years ago." Uzair understands that his words alone are not enough to convince her. So he begins reciting the words of the Torah. The verses flow from his lips with perfect accuracy, every word and every sound exactly as they were taught long ago. The old woman listens in astonishment. Those words are not only familiar, they carry the purity of the original, untouched and unchanged by time. Tears begin to run down her aged face. Her heart trembles as she realizes something her mind can barely accept. She says softly, her voice breaking with emotion, "It is really you, Uzair." Then another miracle takes place. By the will of Allah, her clouded eyes begin to clear. The light returns to the place that had lived in darkness for many years. She blinks again and again, then looks directly into the face of the man standing before her. Not a spirit, not a memory, but Uzair in flesh and blood, standing there as though time never touched him. Her cry draws the attention of the people around them. Villagers begin to gather, curious about what is happening. They see an old woman who has regained her sight after years of blindness. They hear the strange man reciting the Torah with a perfection none of them has ever heard before. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some are amazed. Some are afraid. Some feel their hearts tremble at what they are witnessing. In their eyes, the stranger is no longer just a passerby. He becomes a living sign, a reminder that the power of Allah is not limited by time or death. And in that moment, Uzair understands that his life after this miracle will never be the same again. He has not merely returned from a long sleep. He has become living proof of something many people only dare believe through faith. News of the man who slept for a century spreads faster than the wind. At first, it is only whispers among a few people in the village. They tell each other about the strange traveler recognized by the old blind woman. They talk about how her eyes, clouded for years, suddenly saw again when he stood before her. They speak of his clear and flawless recitation of the Torah, more perfect than that of any scholar in the region. But those stories do not stop there. They move beyond the small roads of the village, beyond the fields, and into the marketplaces of nearby towns. Before long, many people begin to come. They come not only out of curiosity, but because their hearts are searching for something greater. Those who have lost loved ones want to see proof that death is not the end. Those who have heard about the miracle want to see with their own eyes the man whom Allah caused to sleep for for 100 years. Even skeptics come, carrying questions in their minds. They want to know whether the story is true or only a legend being woven by rumor. When they stand before Uzair, they do not see a powerful ruler or a man claiming greatness for himself. They see only a calm human being with the deep eyes of someone who has witnessed what most of humanity has never seen. He does not speak of himself as a wonder. He does not tell his story in a boastful tone. He simply speaks one truth, plain yet powerful. Allah caused him to die. Now and then Allah brought him back to life. Those words carry more weight than any argument ever could, because the story of Uzair is not an abstract idea. It is an event that happened. The basket of fruit never spoiled. The donkey was brought back to life before his eyes. The ruined city was rebuilt. And Uzair himself returned after a century without his body carrying the marks of time. The people who hear that story begin to feel something changing inside them. For many of them, death has always been a silent wall they could not see through. But the story of Uzair feels like a small door opening inside that wall. It reminds them that the one who created life from nothing is also the one who can bring life back after it has gone. In the fields around the village, the plants begin to grow green in their season. To those who look only with ordinary eyes, that is simply the familiar cycle of nature. But for those who have heard the story of Uzair, every green leaf carries a different meaning. They see in it a reminder. Dry earth can become fertile again when rain falls on it. Seeds sleeping beneath the ground can rise into green fields. And if the earth can come back to life after seeming dead, then human beings too will be brought back when Allah calls them to return. Many people weep when they hear the story. Some think of parents who have passed away. Some think of children they have lost. Some remember friends who once walked beside them in life, but now lie beneath the ground. In their hearts, the story of Uzair is not only an ancient miracle, it is a promise that life does not end when the grave is closed. Uzair continues living among the people as a humble man. He does not seek honor. He does not want to become the center of attention. But whether he wants it or not, his story has become part of the collective memory of the entire land. Children grow up hearing their parents tell the story of the man who returned from a century of silence. The elderly repeat it to those who are younger, telling of the day they saw the miracle with their own eyes. As the years pass, Uzair's hair gradually turns white like that of every other human being. He walks more slowly along the familiar roads, but every time he passes by, the people still look at him with deep respect. Not because he's a legendary figure, but because his life has become a sign. On many afternoons, Uzair sits at the edge of the village, here where he can see the fields stretching under the glow of sunset. He watches life continue. Children run along the dirt roads. Men return from the fields after a day of labor. Families gather in front of their homes as the sun goes down. He sees generations grow up, grow old, and leave this world. But in his heart, the memory of the day he opened his eyes after a century remains vivid. He remembers the moment he heard the angel's question. He remembers the sight of the donkey rising from dry bones. He remembers the feeling of realizing that the dead city had come back to life. Those memories are not only personal memories, they are an everlasting reminder of the power of Allah. When Uzair's final days draw near, he does not meet them with fear. A man who has already crossed the boundary between life and death no longer sees death as something terrifying. He understands that death is only another door in the journey Allah has written for every soul. After Uzair leaves this world, the people bury him near the fig tree where the miracle first began. The tree continues to grow, its branches spreading wide like a green canopy over the path. People passing that place often stop for a moment, remembering the story that happened there. And that story continues to be told through generation after generation, not as some distant legend, but as a living reminder that the power of Allah is not limited by time, by death, or by any law human beings think cannot be changed. Because the one who brings the earth back to life after the dry season is the same one who will call every soul to rise on the day he has appointed. When he says be, life returns, and nothing in the universe can stop that command. Applying this lesson to life today means learning to see everything differently. When we face hardship, we remember that Allah's power reaches far beyond what our eyes can see. When we face loss, we remember that death is not a permanent separation. And as we live each day, we remember that this life is not only about what happens today, but also about what is being prepared for the tomorrow of the soul. If this story has helped you understand faith more deeply, the power of Allah more clearly, and the true meaning of life and death more fully, then join the Prophetic History Explained community so you can continue exploring more powerful stories from the history of the prophets, lessons from the Quran, and the events that have shaped the faith of millions across generations. And if you want us to keep bringing you deep stories like this in future videos, please subscribe to Prophetic History Explained and support us. Your support is the greatest motivation that helps this channel continue creating more meaningful content in the future.